Good afternoon, dear viewers. This past week saw Ontario's minority government, led by the Liberals Dalton McGuinty, pass the Ontario 2012 budget with the help of the NDP. Today's show will feature discussion between two leading members of the Liberal Party and the Progressive Conservative Party. Unfortunately, the NDP could not join us today. Later on the show, we will speak with two organizers of the 6th Annual Tamil Studies Conference at the University of Toronto. On our show, on behalf of the Liberals, we have Brad Duguid, who's also the Minister of Economic Development and Innovation, and from the Progressive Conservatives, we have their Deputy Leader Christine Elliot, who is also their critic of the Attorney General and Citizenship and Immigration. Welcome to TVI's Crossroads. Thank you for making the time, and it's a pleasure to have you guys.
Great to join you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Christine. So we'll start with the passing of this recent budget, the 2012 Ontario budget, and a key demand of the NDP, who supported this budget in order for it to pass, was the creation of a new surtax, of a 2% surtax that would be applied to those income earners earning $500,000 and more. How was the PC's response to that? What was your opinion?
Well, we see it as yet another broken promise by Dalton McGuinty. He promised that he wouldn't be raising taxes, and of course with the surtax, that's exactly what's happened. We've seen this happen before with the employer health tax, then with the HST, and now with this. So we're quite disappointed, and it adds to the argument that we've made consistently, which has now been supported by objective evidence with the international bond rating agencies, that they don't have confidence that this government is able to reach the targets that they've set because they keep increasing taxes. What we have here is not a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Right. And that's something that we really haven't seen any indication that Dalton McGuinty is able to stop and to rein it in properly.
And Brad, why did the Liberals accept that demand of the NDP?
Well, we brought forward for both parties consideration a budget that's a strong budget, fit for the times, that balances the books by 2017, 2018. The single most important thing economists have told us we can do to ensure that we continue to build a strong economy, attract investment, and create jobs. We had to ensure that we worked with either both parties or one of the parties to pass this budget. The alternative would have been to do what Tim Hudak wanted to do, and that's take us to the polls. I don't think the people of Ontario wanted to go there. I think, in fact, the people of Ontario are looking at Tim Hudak today very critically. He walked away from discussions about trying to improve the budget, rather than say, you know, there are aspects of this budget we can support, aspects of this budget we don't like. Here's some ideas. He walked away before he even read the document and said, I don't want to be part of this. I'm not going to support it. Okay. Now, with the NDP surtax, which is what you were talking about, that's, we needed to make an arrangement with the NDP. Every cent collected from that tax will go to pay off the debt, which is really important. It's going to help us pay that debt down a little bit.
Christine, I'll let you address the commentary on Tim Hudak, but why have the Liberals capped it at 5 years, or until the deficit is as planned to be eliminated by 2017, 2018? Why 5?
Well, you want to continue to always attract investment into your province, into your jurisdiction. This surtax, we're asking those of higher income, those that are earning $500,000 or more, to pay 2% more. Everybody's got to do their part. They make a little bit more than most. We're asking them to pay a little bit more. At the same time, we want to attract people in those income brackets to our province. So we want to make sure that we always maintain a competitive tax environment. Now, we've brought taxes down substantially since we've been in office. In fact, new businesses are paying half now what they would have been paying before. But we've got to always keep our eye on that competitiveness.
Polls have shown about 78% of Ontarians favor this income surtax, and given, I know, Christine, you're from Whitby, Oshawa, and Brad, you're from Scarborough. Generally middle class, almost blue collar areas, and they're shown a support for this to keep it, and with the class becoming an issue within politics, both federal and provincial, wouldn't it serve Ontario's interest to keep it for further than 5 years?
The political answer would be yes. The economic answer would be we better be very cautious as we do this and monitor very closely the impact that this could have on attracting wealth creation in Ontario. Because at the end of the day, our income tax system is not like the US. Our income tax system is a lot more progressive. So here the rich do pay a lot more than they pay in the US. So a lot of our families are watching US TV and seeing the huge gap there between what rich people pay and lower income people pay. Here it's not quite as diverse. So what we're saying is we can live with this commitment. We want to limit it to when the deficit is paid off, because we'll use this revenue, all of it, to pay down the deficit. At the same time, the finance minister will be monitoring its impact very carefully.
And Christine, what's your party's opinion on the McGuinty's handling of the economy?
Well, we actually believe that with respect to the surtax, it actually is counterproductive, because it will be a disincentive for wealth creators to either move into the province of Ontario or to stay there, and that the only people that are going to do well out of this are lawyers and accountants, because they'll be finding other ways in order to avoid the surtax. So we don't think that there's going to be that much money that's going to come in from this in the first place, and it also sends a very bad signal to business. So at a time when we should be doing everything that we can to attract businesses to Ontario, we're actually sending out very negative messages to them. As to the comment that was made earlier about my leader Tim Hudak and the Ontario PCs, as you would know, there were numerous discussions leading up to the presentation of the budget. Our position was that what we needed to see was a strong attempt by the government to rein in the size and cost of government, to get the deficit under control and to start paying down the debt, and also to bring jobs to the province of Ontario. Those were the two preconditions. We've consistently brought forward in the months leading up to the budget ideas on what the government could do, a legislated public sector wage freeze being one example, and the McGuinty Liberals consistently tossed those ideas aside. So from our perspective, when we actually saw what the budget document contained, it didn't address any of our key issues, and that's why we came out strongly against it.
On that topic, Moody's, the credit ratings agency, has downgraded Ontario's credit to A2 or 2A. What is the PC's response to that? How would you have handled it different that would have prevented that credit rating?
Well, if we had seen the budget addressing the issues that we spoke about, reducing the size and cost of government, and we didn't see that in the budget, and obviously Moody's did not either, nor has Standard & Poor's, that have put us on a negative outlook, as has Dominion Bond Rating Agency. But the actual downgrade from AA1 to AA2 is serious in the sense that it's going to have interest consequences on the $10 billion that we already pay on borrowed money. It's the third largest expenditure of government after health and education. Those costs are going to increase as a result of this. But what it really reflects is an objective outsiders, a lack of confidence in this government's ability to meet the deficit reduction targets that they've set. They've indicated that quite clearly.
That's patently untrue. You're starting to sound more like Peter Sherman than the Christine Elliot I know. The fact is that really what Moody's downgrade was bringing their downgrade to exactly where the other bond rating agencies are. It was expected. The others, that's where the others are. The others did not downgrade Ontario's rating, and in fact, Ontario, as a result of the comments by the rating agencies, will not, in all likelihood, see their interest rates increase in any way. What the rating agencies have said is our expenditure reduction targets are aggressive. They are aggressive. They have to be aggressive. They've said we need to meet those targets. We're determined to meet those targets. We hope that we have the support of the opposition parties to be able to do that. Whether we do or don't, one of the things they were commenting on is the fact that it is challenging in a minority situation for a government to make some of these challenging and tough decisions without the participation of the opposition parties.
Okay, Christine, on to your comment on the concern regarding public sector spending. Through the budget negotiation process, we saw two big public sector groups, the teachers and the doctors, ask for a pay raise. How would the PCs, had they been in power these last 7-8 years, how would they have handled the negotiations between these two important and big groups?
Well, we've said for some months now that because our economic situation is so dire that we do need to take strong action, and we would be in favor of a legislated public sector wage freeze across the board because it's fair. People in the private sector understand how difficult things are right now. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Many people are being asked to take pay cuts. We think it's fair that the public sector workers do the same thing. When you do that, it's not an easy decision to make, but when you do that, that creates fairness. What I think we've got now is a real lack of clarity by this government about what they actually intend to do. Both the doctors and the teachers are throwing up their hands and saying, you basically are not negotiating in good faith with us because it's a foregone conclusion about what you're going to do. I think it's fair to be upfront and honest with people about what it is that you're going to do. It's not easy, but we believe it has to be done to get us to where we need to be.
The PCs would impose a wage freeze.
Yes.
And the Liberals, how are you going to handle these next few months?
Well, we take a different approach with our labour partners, whether it be teachers, whether it be doctors, whether it be public servants. We respect the collective bargaining process. We want to sit down and work through these challenges with our partners as much as we can. But where I disagree with Christine is we've been crystal clear in the budget that we will not be able to go beyond a zero increase. So we will need, if we need to legislate that, we will. Mm-hmm. But out of respect for our doctors, our nurses, our teachers, our public servants, we take a different approach than Mike Harris took and that Tim Hudak would want to take. He would like to be a lot more confrontational than us up front. We have a lot more respect for our public servants, and we want to work with them as much as possible. Because you got to remember, when you think of our teachers, all the gains that we've made in education over the last 8 years, we've become one of the best education systems in the world. It's a tremendous economic advantage. We wouldn't have made those gains if we weren't working in partnership with our teachers. So we're asking everybody to do their part here. We're asking our teachers, our doctors, our nurses, all public servants to recognize how far we've come and work with us in trying to do all we can to meet our targets.
And on the topic of education, which is proving to be a significant issue with a lot of long-standing and new Canadians, is the topic of the funding of Catholic schools. Ontario remains the only province to fund Catholic schools to 100%. In the past, we saw Mike Harris offer credit to parents who send their kids to private schools, presumably some religious. And also, we saw John Tory address the issue with looking to fund all religious school boards. The United Nations in 1999, the United Nations Human Rights Council said this is discriminatory. Given the other provinces' attempts to defund or remove funding from the Catholic school boards, how is this issue likely to progress in Ontario? Mm-hmm. Will it come to a head with Ontarians?
Well, I mean, I don't know, Christine, a lot to say about this, but I mean, our priority is the public school system. Our priority is ensuring that we build the best education system possible for our kids. So we're focusing on full day learning, full day kindergarten, so that we can get kids started at the best possible way, get them off to the best possible start. We're focusing on continuing to ensure we keep class sizes down. We're focusing on continual improvement, and we've seen that. We're now regarded internationally as having one of the best education systems in the world.
Many people say if you have one system as opposed to a separate and a public, you'll cut bureaucratic costs, which money that could be sent into schools.
And here's my challenge with that.
Mm-hmm.
My belief is if we were to open up that can of worms, we would mire ourselves into a debate that would completely distract from what's our most important priority, and that's building the best education system in the world. That's what we've achieved working with our partners over the last 8 years. But the world's changing fast. It's fierce competition out there. We've got to keep moving forward, and the last thing we need is a divisive debate to detract from those efforts.
And Christine?
Well, there's no question that there is an element of unfairness about this that is partly a result of our history, and we have tried to address it in many different ways. But I think what people have said to us quite clearly, and I would agree with Brad, is that we need to have a strong public school system. Mm-hmm. We do have excellent standards. We have great teachers in our schools. We are moving in the right direction, and I think that any argument about the defunding Catholic schools would certainly be very divisive and would distract from the business of getting on with things. So.
Okay.
That's where we are.
And connected to...
We agree.
We agree on that.
and connected to education and our social values. In the 2011 provincial election, we saw certain flyers distributed in certain ridings by Hudak candidates decrying certain legislation by the McGuinty as anti-gay, as the flyers were seen as anti-gay. So having that happen in 2011 and the recent provincial election in Alberta, where you saw the Wildrose Party, which is widely expected to win a majority government, hurt itself in the last couple of weeks with what people would characterize as unprogressive comments made by some of their candidates. And a lot of pundits and commentators have contributed those social conservative views of some of the candidates as one of the major reasons why the Wildrose Party failed to win what they were predicted to. Going into the next election, going as social issues come to the front, how do you see your party responding to some of the issues raised?
Well, first I would say with respect to the pamphlets that you were mentioning that were disseminated during the last election campaign, those were not released by PC candidates, I can tell you that, first of all.
I think the flyers were authorized by the financial agent of the PC party.
Well, there's still a lot of discussion about that,
Okay.
but they were not disseminated with the full authority of the candidates. Okay. Secondly, with respect to social conservative issues, I really think that what the people of Ontario are focused on right now are economic issues. They are concerned about having jobs. They're concerned about finding jobs for their children. Youth unemployment is a serious problem. We have a big deficit and a bigger debt. We need to move on and create the kinds of conditions for workers to grow and thrive here. Social issues are not something that I think we need to concentrate on right now. I think it's more economic, and that's what we're going to have our focus on as we go forward in the next Parliament.
Okay. These last few months also saw the rise of the Ornge scandal and its root in a lack of oversight by not only the Premier's office but as well as the Health Ministry. What went wrong, Brad?
Well, you nailed it, and we were very clear from the moment that the revelations came out about what had happened. The challenge was a concept had been put forward. The person in charge of that concept does not appear to have been honest in his dispensation of his responsibilities, and there was a lack of oversight to control that. When the minister found out about what was going on, decisive action was taken, and we're now in the process in the legislature. There's a committee of the legislature that's looking into the details of this today. It's unfortunate. It's something, I think, what's important here is the government didn't do what governments often do when these things come up and say, it wasn't our fault, we're not taking responsibility. Instead, we came right out and said, look, this shouldn't have happened. We needed more
on that
oversight,
topic of it shouldn't have happened.
So let's fix it and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Given what happened in the past with e-health, why weren't certain provisions made to prevent this type of incident?
Well, at the end of the day, the fact was we felt there should have been more oversight over this organization. There wasn't, and what we've done is we've completely revamped the board. It's a new board going forward. This is an important public service. It's an award-winning public service. In fact, it's seen globally as one of the best in the world, which is a shame when this scandal kind of taints the good work that they do. But we've now put in place oversight that's much more aggressive, much more in keeping what's needed to ensure that, the key is we want to ensure this never happens again.
Christine, do you have a comment?
Well, what we really can't understand is how something like this could have happened with an organization that was set up to provide air ambulance services and created this whole maze of interconnected companies with all kinds of different purposes, some for profit, some not for profit, and how the minister failed to do anything about that. The Minister of Health knew about this in January 2011. She received a 20-some page outline with respect to this. Why red flags didn't go up when you saw that kind of a tangle of companies, I don't know. There were many people who knew about this. It was going on right under their noses. Why something wasn't done, I don't know. The other issue is that we really don't have the mechanisms to find out what really happened with the committee structure that we have at Queen's Park. That's why we as PCs have been calling for a select committee to be struck so that we can really get to the bottom of things. There is the OPP investigation that's going on. They have a different focus than what a select committee would have, and we believe it's really necessary.
Thank you. It's time for a break. Dear viewers, please join us after a few commercials. Welcome back to Crossroads. Today we have Brad Duguid of the Liberals and Christine Elliot of the Progressive Conservative Party discussing this week's budget and Ontario politics in general. Viewers, please feel free to join the discussion. As you know, the number is 416-623-8100. We'd love to hear your comments and questions to our guests. Brad and Christine, earlier before the break, we were discussing some of the issues that arise when there's a lack of oversight or when there's too much responsibility in the Premier's office and the Prime Minister's office. And it's the idea that our Canadian political system, the power is becoming centralized in these two offices, and ministers are seeing less, having less ability to scrutinize work and make decisions. Have you noticed this? Is this true, what certain pundits have been talking about recently? And what are the benefits and challenges of this setup?
Well, I mean, I can start. It is true and it isn't true. It kind of depends. Okay. There's no question that over the last 20 years, we've seen more and more centralization of decision-making, and in particular, messaging come from the Prime Minister's office or the Premier's office, and Ontario's not unique to this. This is politics probably all around the world. And I think it's probably a response to the 30-second clip media coverage that we get now. And it's not to blame the media, that's the world we live in, and we accept that. But if one of your members, and Christine can identify with this too, if one of your members goes offside on messaging, it's a big story. So central messaging and a consistent message is really important in today's media environment. So number one, that makes it very critical that the Premier's office or the Prime Minister's office has some level of control over that messaging. When it comes to ideas, when it comes to bringing forward policy, there's involvement in Ontario, and I can't speak for Ottawa, but in Ontario, there's involvement with the Premier's office, and you better have them on side when you're moving forward with things, or you're going to have a tough time when you get to cabinet. But there's also a great opportunity for creativity, and I know as Minister of Economic Development and Innovation, I take a lot of my direction from the business community at large. That's where I reach out to for unique ideas, for creative thinking, for policy direction, and then I bring that back to the Premier's office, and we work together as a cabinet to implement the policy. So I think you're right in one sense. In another sense, there is room for creativity in that system still.
Right. Christine, what's been your observation?
Well, I haven't yet had the opportunity to serve in government, so I can't speak to that personally. I hope to someday. But I would agree with Brad's observations that generally speaking, there has been more of a centralization of power and control more in the Premier's office and the Prime Minister's office. With respect to communication, I think that is really important because you do want to have a consistent central message that's coming forward. But I think in terms of policy, sometimes there is a little bit of frustration. I think that certainly we feel in opposition that I would imagine that some of the backbench government members would also feel that you don't always have the opportunity to have your ideas considered at the same level perhaps as cabinet ministers. I think one of the opportunities that we have with a minority government is to have more select committees on non-partisan issues, things that, like the Select Committee on Mental Health and Addictions that I was privileged to serve on that committee several years ago, and we dealt with mental health and addiction programs and services in Ontario, and wrote a report to the minister and to cabinet that I think all of the members that were involved in felt that was one of the best pieces of work that they'd done during their time in the legislature. So I hope that once the hubbub dies down a bit around the budget, that we'll be able to go back to the table and talk about having more select committees on issues that we know are important to people in Ontario.
All right, on to a slightly different issue, Aboriginal affairs. The PC party has been quite strong in their opposition to how the Liberals have conducted the Caledonia situation. Why is that?
We believe that there is one law that should be applicable to everyone, and that we don't have different laws for different people. And we saw an uneven application of the law during the events that happened in Caledonia several years ago. We just think that it should be consistent for all Ontarians.
And Brad?
Well, I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I mean, that's a simple thing to say. At the end of the day, we have First Nation communities across this province. In particular, when you look at Caledonia, when you look at the Six Nations, they're fighting to be heard by a federal government that simply does not want to negotiate with them. They have a bona fide land claim. This isn't something they've made up, or it's not a request. They've been recognized. Province is going to owe them money, and the federal government's going to owe them money. There's no question they've been wronged. Okay, that's already been decided. There are negotiations now to determine by how much, and the federal government has been very ineffective in moving forward with bringing that forward, which leads to a level of frustration.
A lot of the
not just in Six Nations, but right across the country with regard to Aboriginal people.
A lot of the concerns from the residents of Caledonia have been with the nature and style of the protests, which have affected their day-to-day living. How can that be? How can those two concerns be balanced?
I've spent a lot of time in Caledonia. I spent a lot of time in Six Nations as a former Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, which is why I took a great interest there. And I can tell you the majority of people in Caledonia have seen over the last number of years it's a very peaceful coexistence taking place. The odd time, somebody will try to tear the scab off the wounds. And I think the chief was very responsible. Bill Montour, this past weekend, there was a protest going on. I noticed in the media, and the chief said, it's like pouring salt in the wounds. He didn't want to participate. They want to move on. The people in Six Nations want economic opportunities. The people in the Haldimand County region want economic opportunities. As long as this persists, it makes it very difficult for that region to attract economic investment.
Okay, and on that note of economic investment and economic opportunity, there's been some criticism of the Liberal budget that accounts for healthcare increases, are accounting for 2.1% increases. A lot of the criticism is saying that's unrealistic, and in turn our deficit is going to grow. How do you account for that 2.1%?
We're going to meet those targets. We have to meet those targets. It's non-negotiable. We have to achieve the expenditure targets that we set out. And I think the rating agencies, that's really what they were saying, is they weren't saying they didn't agree with the budget. They weren't saying they didn't agree with the direction we're taking. They've said you have very aggressive targets and you better meet them. And that's a bit of a warning to the government. It's a warning, frankly, to the opposition parties that if they want to work to make this legislature and this minority government work, they're going to have to be conscious of that too. And it's a warning to our partners that we're going to have to do what we're setting out to do.
Christine, does your party agree with that criticism? And if so, how would a PC government create efficiency and in the healthcare ministry?
Well, the international bond rating agencies have indicated that they don't believe that the plan is credible. They don't believe that those targets can be met. And we would certainly agree with them. As long as this government continues to keep doing the healthcare programs and services the way that they are. What we need is a real serious look at the way that we're delivering healthcare in the province of Ontario, and simply tinkering around the edges with incremental reforms is not going to be the way that we're going to need to move in healthcare in order to be able to reach those targets. We believe they're unrealistic and they're simply not going to be able to be met.
How would the PCs meet them, or how would the PCs do what's necessary to ensure healthcare spending is reined?
What we need to do is take a look at what patient-centered healthcare truly means. It can mean many different things to different people, but if you look at what the people in Ontario are saying, what they want is to make sure that they can get healthcare for their loved ones when they need it. One real area of concern is the lack of long-term care options, alternate level of care. We need more home care services so that people can stay in their own homes longer. It's better care. People always want to stay in their own homes, and it's less expensive than staying in hospital. So we need to apply apply that lens of what's good quality patient care, keeping those standards high, and yet looking at solutions that are cost effective. And we need to look at that throughout the entire system.
I agree with that. And that's exactly what we're doing in the budget is we have zero increase when it comes to institutional care. That's going to be tough on those institutions. Where our health increase is, our 2.1% increase, is focused on community-based care. That's where we need to focus. It is a very comprehensive transition that's been going on in healthcare for some time. I think the times demand that we get this done sooner rather than later, because what we can do when we move to community-based healthcare is have it more patient-focused, get better value for money, and get better service, better healthcare for the people of Ontario. So it's a smarter way to do healthcare. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. But these days, there are challenges in government, and if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. We're out ahead of most other jurisdictions in this area, and we're going to continue to lead.
The Globe and Mail's Adam Radwanski, he commented that this budget was one that tilted to the right. Do you agree with that statement, or did you feel otherwise?
Well, I would say no, especially given the accord now with the NDP, given the concessions that have been made with the surtax, with agreeing to cut back the corporate tax reductions, which we think are necessary in order to attract business to the province of Ontario. So I would not say so, no.
So when future negotiations come up to if the strategy is to get the support of the NDP, where would the Liberals draw the line in terms of their demands and their what they're looking for?
Well, I mean, we're in a minority government. I don't think at this point in time we can speculate as to where we turn for the next confidence vote for support. There was a lot in this budget that I thought Tim Hudak and the PCs could have supported. They chose not to. There was a lot in this budget that the NDP could have embraced. I wouldn't say they embraced the budget, but I think they recognized that and responsibly tried to improve it, make a strong budget even stronger. The NDP's, the agreement with the NDP certainly didn't weaken us fiscally. In fact, it's going to help us get to balance even quicker. So we will work with both parties. We'll be, certainly we'll continue as we get through the budget process here. We'll continue to reach out to the PCs where necessary for their support on issues that they may have more affinity to, and we'll reach out to the NDP on issues that they may have more affinity to.
Christine, you're the critic for Citizenship and Immigration.
Yes.
So it's an interesting portfolio, given that immigration's a federal issue, but there are rules where Ontario plays a role in acclimatizing new Canadians to our society. What are the features, as a critic, do you feel are not being fully implemented, or what should be changed?
I think that one of the biggest areas of concern is people with international professional degrees coming to Ontario and becoming accredited to act in that capacity, because we see a lot of people when they come to Canada perhaps with an expectation that they're going to be able to practice medicine. They end up cab drivers and doing other jobs. So at a time, especially with health professionals, at a time where we really need to have more family physicians and we need to make sure that each healthcare professional is used up to their highest level and standard possible, I think we really need to take a look at the credentialing program and really try to get it to a point where people understand where it is before they come to Canada, and B, make sure that we can get it done as quickly as possible while still maintaining the standards that people expect here.
And Brad, do you?
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, and I think we've been working hard to try to make improvements there. And when it comes to foreign credentials for doctors, for instance, we've significantly increased the number of foreign-trained doctors that are now practicing here in the province of Ontario. Other professions, we've tried to break down some of the barriers that don't exist at Queen's Park. I mean, a lot of the barriers exist in the various associations that can control the professions through the.
But the associations are accredited by the province.
But through the Commission of the Professions and Trades, what we've tried to do is break down some of those barriers, and we've been somewhat successful in doing that. But it's an ongoing issue, and I think it needs to be a priority, and I'm glad to hear Christine saying it as well, for all political parties, because as long as people with skills are being left outside of the economy and not able to apply those skills, it's a huge loss to each and every one of us.
And Brad, you're the Minister of Economic Development, which we've discussed, also the Minister of Innovation. What is on the cards in terms of the Ontario's plan to create and sustain innovation?
Well, we've put in place for the last 8 years now, we've been building an innovation agenda in this province, and Ontario has now become a hotbed for research and development.
Very quickly, what are the major ones?
Well, we've got to keep investing in research and innovation. We are. We just had last week an announcement from IBM. They're building the one and only research facility in all the world. It's a $215 million investment, 145 high-skilled jobs. That's going to potentially create a number of brand new sectors in Ontario's economy. They could have went anywhere. They chose Ontario because they wanted to be where the innovation is. That's with IBM.
Christine, what would a PC government do to attract innovation or allow for more innovation to happen?
Well, we still have a big innovation gap in Ontario, and an innovation gap equals a productivity gap, which means loss of economic opportunities for many people across the province. We believe we need to step up those efforts. We need to create those kinds of innovation incubators across the province. Where
Anything
we can
specific,
really
cutting taxes or for those coming from abroad?
I think there's a whole variety of things that you could do, but I think that one of the things that we do very well here is the research and development. We have great researchers here. We have some great collaborative partnerships. Where I think we kind of miss it is when getting to commercialize those ideas and having the kinds of investment funds available so that people, when they have those great ideas, can actually develop them and create jobs here in Ontario rather than having to go to other jurisdictions. I think that's what we really need to focus on.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we had, but it's a pleasure having you two on.
Thanks,
you, Brad.
Brad.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much,
Christine.
Pleasure.
Dear viewers,
And
we're
thank you,
going
Brad.
to have a few
Yes.
commercials, and we'll be back with two of the organizers from the University of Toronto's Tamil Studies Conference. Welcome back to Crossroads. For the last 6 years, the University of Toronto and the University of Windsor have hosted an annual conference that brings together academics, students, and well-wishers in a Tamil Studies conference that covers a large range of topics. To describe the conference and discuss it, we have two dedicated volunteers, Sobika and Arathy. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. So, some of our viewers may or may not know about this annual conference held at the University of Toronto. Perhaps you can enlighten us on what it's about.
Sure. So the first ever conference took place back in 2006, and ever since then we've been continuously providing a conference every year. It has grown in its numbers of attendees and scholars. The purpose or the intent of the conference was firstly to create, given Toronto's large Tamil population along with the South Asian population, there was a bit of a void, and in order to fill that void, the conference intended to create Toronto as a center for Tamil studies in context to larger North America, so that not only can academics engage in research in the field of Tamil studies, but also community members, activists, artists, writers, along with students. Our second goal is particularly to engage the young generation. Students like us in Tamil studies, so that they can network with scholars, attendees, learn about the various opportunities that can be found in the field of Tamil studies, because a lot of us do want to get to know about our culture, our history, our identity, our traditions, and this is one space where this is a space that provides that avenue.
What are examples of the topics that like a Tamil Studies conference would cover? What do they range from?
It ranges from like politics to culture to language, history, and this year's theme is Traces of the Past. And
Sorry, can you repeat?
Traces of the Past.
Traces of the Past.
And we're trying to focus on history and looking at history to understand, looking at the past to understand the present. One of our papers is by Ornge, and she's from South Asia, and she looks at activism and history in Sri Lanka, and she records the history of activism throughout Sri Lanka's history, and it's varying from like Marxist activism to religious activism, and what she tries to do in her paper is record an inadequately addressed history and often consciously covered up history and try to create a new and diverse political discourse to understanding activism.
And to give an idea to our viewers on the dynamic within these conferences, so a lot of these issues are contentious and controversial. What generally happens in the Q&A session when people disagree with some of the presenters?
I think that's one of the most highlighted moments in our conference is that every panel there is a question and answer session, and that's crucial because these topics or questions there has to be a dialectal communication between the scholars, attendees, and that's where you get various interpretations and understandings of topics. And that's one of the goals of the conference, is not to provide this monolithic view of a topic or issue within Tamil studies, but to get varying perspectives on it. And that's how you grow and learn about these issues that interest us.
And in terms of attendance, who can attend and who generally comes out?
Anybody can attend. We have varying different types of attendees, from academics to activists to just community members as well. Our
students as well.
Yeah,
And what is the student price?
So the student price for one day it's $20, and for 2 days it's $35. If that's also for seniors, sorry. But if you're a regular attendee, it depends if you're 2 days or just 1 day, and that can go up to $60.
Okay. And having attended 5 of the 6 Tamil Studies conferences, I can fully, verify that it's worth the money. How is this year different from previous years? I know, Arathy, you mentioned the theme is different, of course, but in terms of presenters, any new panels, new type of
Every year we have 2 plenary speakers. So this year for our Friday plenary speaker, it'll be Kirishima. He is from the University of Tokyo, and his paper deals with tracing the past, the Tamil past, through inscriptions, and inscriptions that are found on stones and copper plates.
And sorry, before you proceed, is he native Japanese or is he a Tamil person living in Tokyo? I'm assuming he's
from Japanese, but his interest is in South Indian studies, and he is from the University of Tokyo. So that's another interesting part of the conference, is that it's not only Tamil communities or people of the Tamil diaspora who take part in the conference. There are various diaspora communities who are interested in Tamil studies, and that's what makes it unique.
Quite a few of the presenters are non-Tamil.
Absolutely.
So getting back to his, what will he be speaking about?
His paper will deal with understanding Tamil past through inscriptions. So instead of looking at, let's say, novels, for example, this is an ancient stuff, so inscriptions, reading through stones and copper plates. And our Saturday plenary speaker is A.R. Venkatachalapathy. Okay. And Arathy can...
his paper is going to be on 2 scholars, Dharmapudi Pillai and Swaminathan Iyer, and they're 2 prominent literary scholars from history, and their varying viewpoints are kind of discussed within the paper, and they worked together in their work, but they also had they cooperated as well as had conflicts with each other. And Venkatachalapathy essentially looks at 2 letters between the 2 scholars and tries to understand their cooperation and their conflict with each other. And it's interesting.
Sorry, were they religious figures or were they
no, they're
cultural?
Literary scholars.
Literary, sorry,
And
from Tamil Nadu?
Yes, And what's interesting about this paper is that it's an archival paper almost, and looking at actual textual evidence of letters and
Any other key panels that will likely draw a big attraction this year?
I think most of our panels they have something unique to it, but our panels this year generally focus on the caste, politics, gender, language or literary. So those are probably our 4 main themes around our panels, and I think all 4 of them will draw a large number of attendees because they're hot topics in Tamil studies.
Yeah, I certainly know the caste panel, which has a topic on caste in the diaspora and caste in Jaffna currently, will certainly draw a big crowd. And one who's doing the presentation on caste in the diaspora will be coming on Crossroads.
That's cool.
Where can our attendees find more information? How to register, who the speakers are, and other details?
If you visit our website, www.tamilstudiesconference.ca, you can find all the information there. You can find our abstracts and bios of the different scholars that are presenting. The registration link is also on the website. Also, if you have any questions, the email address is also on the website. It's info@tamilstudiesconference.ca. And there's also videos as well if you want to look at past conferences and what other scholars have to say about the conference as well.
Okay. I know the University of Toronto and the University of Windsor are supporting. What's the nature of their role? How are they supporting this conference?
So they are our sponsors, so they help us through that. We also have other sponsors such as the New College, the French Institute of Pondicherry, the Monk Center, Asian Institute, and our last one is SHIRC, which stands for Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. So all of them play as...
Is that a new sponsor?
It is our new sponsor for this year.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
What are the plans for, and I'm not sure if you guys can speak to it, but the future plans of the Tamil Studies Conference? In terms of growth, perhaps a different venue, or will it remain in Toronto? Or?
Well, we're definitely going to continue bringing it every year. I think maybe we're looking into creating a Tamil program in institutions. I mean, that's crucial, right? We have Caribbean studies, we have all sorts of ethnic studies, and hopefully the conference will draw attention from the institutions to create such a program. And moving the conference out of Toronto, that's a possibility, but we haven't, decided on that, but that's sure a possibility.
I know the University of Toronto in the past has had a few courses on the Tamil language and Tamil history. Are those courses still offered? What's the status?
At the moment, no, it's not offered. But I think with encouraging more students to come out, coming out to the Tamil Studies Conference itself, I think will encourage more students to try and get these courses to be
back in our programs.
And that's one of our goals as well, to encourage more students to be part of the Tamil Studies and essentially
because they are the next generation. They will be taking forth Tamil Studies. They're the one who has to carry it forward to the next generation. It's crucial that young students come out. I'm sure they'll definitely, even if they don't think they have an interest at the moment, I'm sure they'll find something unique about it, because that's how I started off. I actually started off as a high school student. I had I didn't know what the conference had to offer, but with my first experience, I remember just feeling pride in learning about my culture, my identity, traditions, seeing other diasporic communities take part in this conference. So I got to meet a lot of new people. You get to interact with scholars.
So it seems like there's a lot of value in attending.
Absolutely.
I certainly know. I met my fiance at the Tamil Studies Conference. So unfortunately it's time to wrap up. Dear viewers, thank you for tuning in. Also, this past week saw the commemoration and memorial of two outstanding and important figures in the Tamil community who sacrificed considerably. The leader of the Ilinke Tamil nation from the 1950s to the 1970s, Tante Chelva, or known as SJV Chelvanayagam, as well as the internationally acclaimed journalist Sivaram, who the Tamil Studies Conference have had several panels on, otherwise known by his pen name, Taraki. They both left an indelible and long-lasting and unforgettable contribution to our society. Thank you, Nandri, and we hope you have a good week.